I think the men found in the bear almost another human being to whom they could relate and love and have friendship and fun and games, as well as, you know, obviously support each other during a time of war.
Well, in 1939, there was many thousands of Poles sent to Siberia, into the Siberian gulags. They languished there for some time till 1942. In 1942, the gates were opened as the Allies had come to a deal with Stalin, and the Poles then veered towards Egypt, where they knew they could meet up with the Allies and return to the war.
Wojtek had been picked up as a Syrian brown bear, but in what was Persia, now modern day Iran, they had found a little boy with a bear cub in a sack, whose mother had been killed by hunters, and they took the bear on to nurture it.
The story of the bear itself is very significant. It's often the case in war that soldiers take mascots, they accompany soldiers wherever they are. This bear became a particularly famous mascot and was actively engaged all of the time with the soldiers. The bear didn't know he was a bear. He thought he was a soldier, and he actually then was given the name, rank and number of a soldier, and he performed heroically.
The other soldiers from other countries then saw and played with him, and were amazed at how tame he was and how receptive he was to, you know, kindness especially, and how he enjoyed fun, like playing football or, you know, messing about, you know, wrestling or having a bath. You know, they would dig a hole in the ground and he would have a bath in the ground. So basically he was treated like a child and very, as I said before, very spoiled. Poles thought that the closer they were, if they were in Europe, the closer they were to Poland, because they hadn't quite realised how bad things were. However, those particular Poles took the bear and were on the quayside and waiting to go onto the troop ship when they were told, well, I'm sorry, you can't take your bear because he's an animal, and we don't allow animals on the troop ships. So there was a revolt. Somebody had the bright idea of giving them a name and a rank and serial number, and that solved the whole problem. From there on, they fought many battles before they got to Monte Cassino, but Monte Cassino is the battle everybody knows about, and of course it was well filmed and documented. And their job was artillery. So they had the shells and they were feeding the ammunition to the front, and Wojtek was there.
He wasn't trained to carry munitions, he just simply did this because he saw what his fellow soldiers were doing and he was part of the team. And it's a very important relationship between man and animal.
At the end of the war, obviously there were so many Poles and people from different nationalities that they were literally put in a boat and sent to Britain somewhere. But these particular Poles with Wojtek, they were eventually sent to an old RAF camp called Winfield, which is in Berwickshire in the Scottish borders. In 1947, the Polish Resettlement Corps was disbanded, the camp was closed, and the decision about the men, as well as the bear, had to be made. I think the big problem at that particular time, they were trying to figure out how their own lives were going to go, but then the conversation at night was always around what was to happen to Wojtek, and there was many arguments about what was to happen to him. And the local vet, amongst others, decided that he should really go to Edinburgh Zoo until the decision could be made. think Kay once told me, he said it was like putting an arrow through your heart. And he said it was like that because it was the last thing, the last possession. They had nothing left after Wojtek had gone.
Taką klamrą spinającą, jak gdyby tą całą historię niedźwiedzia Wojtka jest to, że on został przygarnięty przez ludzi, którzy też byli w zasadzie sierotami, bo oni stracili swoich najbliższych, rodziny, swój dom, swoją ojczyznę, nie mieli szans powrotu do niej, nie mieli do kogo wracać, nie mieli do czego wracać. I ten niedźwiedź, który gdzieś tam był porzucony, gdzieś tam był kupiony, on też nie miał, w zasadzie on też był pozbawiony, jak gdyby to był niedźwiedź sierota.
Our journey really only starts when we get the memorial placed in Princess Street Gardens, because we then have to return them some way to Poland, and then mark his, his time in Casino and all the other places. But the Scots people themselves have to do that.
We're very proud, I think, of the work that Alan Beattie Herriot has done to actually design this particular sculpture. He's a Scottish sculptor, high quality, and he has interpreted it very, very sensitively.
When the men after the war were down at Hutton, which was a demob camp, it was quite usual to find Wojtek and his keeper Peter Prentice walking around the country lanes outside the camp, and often he would stop and talk to locals, local farmers, and so you can picture a very unusual sight of a man and a bear in a very narrow road, and you're walking towards it and saying, I wonder how I'm going to get past this lot. But occasionally Wojtek would become impatient and he would want to move off, and if he did so, his keeper Peter would just say Wojtek and put his hand on his back. And so we decided that contact between man and animal was what we wanted to show.
I think the fact that we can have a memorial like this, which is not a war memorial, but a tribute to the humanity of the soldier and this relationship with an animal, is a very, very compelling one. And this is the way in which the statue has been interpreted here and will be placed in Princess Street Gardens in Edinburgh. It reflects the friendship also at the time that the Scottish people showed to the displaced Polish soldier and the displaced bear, and the statue represents the two walking together in a friendly way.
We feel that the sacrifice made by the Polish soldiers during the Second World War was an incredible sacrifice, and almost unrecognised, generally speaking, unrecognised. After all, it was a Polish flag that was raised above Monte Cassino. Polish pilots fought at the Battle of Britain. And at the end of the war, the Polish forces were not invited to the Victory Day celebrations in London, which was a sin and disgrace. And perhaps this monument in Scotland will go some way to rectifying that injustice.
To me, the important thing was that we continued the dialogue of being able to tell the story to children, and Wojtek seemed like an ideal way of making sure that the conversation about what had happened in the past and a kind of continued relationship went forward, and to me Wojtek was just the perfect vehicle for that.
I saw him at Edinburgh Zoo when I was 8 years old, just before he died. And he was an old bear by that time, but I had, like most children in schools in Scotland, we had a Polish friend. I had a Polish friend at school. And Rennie called to him in Polish because her father had told her, speak to Wojtek in Polish and he'll talk back. He waved, he just, this huge soup plate paw, just waved like this. Oh my goodness, But I remember saying to Rennie, ask Wojtek if he remembers my grandpa. So Rennie said something in Polish, and he sort of was very animated. And Rainey said to me back, yes, he remembers your grandfather. And I believed it. Of course, I still believe it.